That's actually a good place to pivot more, to go to the Miami Heat, who made a couple of big pickups at the trade deadline. Most notably, Victor Oladipo. They traded Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley, and I forget what, like hardly anything. It was just a total. Houston should really be relegated to the G League for at least a couple of years for how badly they've screwed this thing up over the last 2 months. So what do you think of the Oladipo experience? We know he's been, I feel like since last year there have been a lot of Oladipo to Miami smoke. We thought it might happen in free agency, but he made it very clear that he wanted to go to this Heat team. How much do you see him helping them, get back on track this season? They just have not been the type of, finals contender that they were last year.
Defensively, I'm not going to lie to you. It could be insanely fun to watch. Could you just imagine this? I was thinking about this the other day. Depot at the 1. You have Jimmy, I guess, at the 2. Iggy at the 3. Ariza at the 4, and Bam at the 5. Just for defensive purposes. Switch everything. Like, just go nuts. How do you score on that lineup? How do you get a good shot off there? I don't think you do. So from a defensive perspective and the defensive versatility that he does offer, that intrigues me. Offensively, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Because he's just such a non-shooter now.
Yeah.
This is just not a part of his game that was evolved or improved to a point where he became a knockdown three-point shooter. He is not a natural jump shooter. And he's reaching that age now where it's becoming increasingly more difficult to see him as one in the future.
Yeah.
So what is his offensive role going to be? Like, Jimmy's primarily a slasher. Bam is also a guy who scores mostly from inside the three-point line. Kendrick Nunn, while he can't shoot the ball, he's actually hitting 2 threes a game. Is also one of those burly guys that you kind of want to see establish himself more on drives. Dragic is a modest three-point shooter, even though he can hit it. But outside of that, like, Iggy's not a good three-point shooter. Like, Trevor Ariza, that's pretty hit or miss. That's mostly for his defense now. He's gotten older. What do you do with Depot here? Like, if you're playing him in lineups with Jimmy and Bam, you have 3 non-shooters in there. Like, last year, you and I had the conversation. Is it a problem that Miami has, that they have 2 non-shooters on the floor?
Yeah.
Now they're adding a 3rd. So offensively, I think there's a ceiling there now, which is not that high. But defensively, good Lord, it could get fantastic. So it's really one of those situations where I don't think it's a good fit from a scoring perspective. But the Heat have this understanding or this philosophy that you can never have too many good defenders. And you know what? I get it. It's super intriguing. But I just don't know if he is as playable as we think he is, especially in the playoffs, if he's not making shots.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's been my concern with the conceptual Oladipo to Miami fit for as long as this has been in the rumor mill is how does he fit with Jimmy and Bam? Can you have that many non-shooters on the floor at one time? And as you said, Jimmy is much more of a slasher. I think Oladipo is much more of a slasher or a driver than he is a shooter at this point of his career as well. So the spacing is going to get crowded around the paint. I mean, you'll give respect to Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Dragic. Other than that, I think you kind of just pack the paint and dare the Heat to shoot.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even care if you have Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero on either flank. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. If I'm an NBA defense, I'll live with Duncan Robinson hitting 6 threes on me, and I'll live with Tyler Hero hitting 4. I'm okay with that. I am totally okay with that if it means I'm just clocking the lane and I'm making sure that I'm stopping the driving game of Jimmy. I'm stopping the driving game of Vic. And I'm well, you can't really check Bam because he's just so big and strong, but you can at least, if you clock the paint, it'll still be more difficult for him to manufacture a shot. So you're right. This is one of those situations where you just go, you know what, shoot away. It's fine. It's fine. You just don't have the necessary firepower to punish us. Like maybe you win a game here and there because you just catch fire and Duncan Robinson hits like 12 3-pointers.
Right.
Okay, but those are not the normal odds. Like we're going to play that, and in the playoffs, I think this could be a huge thing that teams are scheming against. And I have to assume moving forward that the Heat are going to stagger Jimmy and Oladipo for as much as possible. But like that too is kind of difficult because Jimmy's averaging 34 minutes.
Yeah.
That leaves 14. So okay, then you give Victor Oladipo those 14, but he's still looking like a starter. He still wants starter minutes. He wants to play probably 32, 35 himself. So you need to play him with Jimmy for around 20 minutes per game almost.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the solution, is just try to limit the number of minutes you play with all three of those guys, Jimmy, Depot, and Bam. And then if Depot insists that he like has to be a starter, okay, but just pull one of these guys pretty early. And again, like there are ways to stagger it so they're not going to all spend 35 minutes together. I think the one thing working in really all three of their favor is that they're all pretty good playmakers. So even though none of them are great shooters, at least Oladipo, he's willing to pull the trigger. He's not a good shooter, but Bam just won't shoot a ton of threes. Jimmy won't shoot a high volume of threes. Oladipo will shoot them. You'll just live with those shots. I think I think teams will still try to really scheme to stop or just stick with Robinson and Hero around and Dragic too around the perimeter. I think they'll just say, Victor, if you want to take 10 threes a game, by all means, friends. Like, that is a win for us more often than not.
Right.
But because, if you do just basically put all five bodies in the paint, you are going to leave guys open around the perimeter. So when Jimmy's driving, when Depot's driving with the ball, those guys can kick it out very easily. So that is the one thing that can actually work in Miami's favor, just having so many guys who can create off the dribble. And we saw how important that was for them last year. I mean, Dragic took on a huge role in the playoffs and, helped usher them to the finals.